The stars shimmered peacefully above Dr. Alex Foster's mountain observatory. For 6 years, she had pointed the massive radio telescope toward distant galaxies, searching for signs of intelligent life. Tonight was like any other, until it wasn't. Dr. Foster, Tom, her young assistant, burst into the control room. The computer flagged something. "You need to see this." On the monitor, a pattern of signals appeared, too regular to be natural cosmic noise. Alex's heart raced as she analyzed the data. The signals weren't coming from a distant star system. They were originating from just beyond Pluto. "Call General Wilson," she said quietly. Now, 3 days later, the world's top scientists and military leaders gathered in an underground facility beneath Geneva. Alex stood before them, explaining what they had discovered. These aren't random signals. They're communications, and they're getting closer. General Wilson, a stern man with gray hair, leaned forward. "Are you telling us aliens are coming to Earth, Doctor?" "Yes," Alex replied. "And they're advanced. Very advanced." Across the galaxy, Admiral Vex of the Galactic Imperial Fleet studied holographic displays of the small blue planet. His scaled fingers tapped against the command console as he considered his options. "Earth shows promising development," he said to his officers. "Their quantum research is primitive but innovative. The Empire requires new approaches to quantum mechanics." His second-in-command, Officer Mira, nodded. "Shall we prepare the standard conquest protocol?" "Not yet," Vex replied. "Send Ambassador Corin first. Let's see if they understand their place in the galaxy." On Earth, panic spread through governments but not to the public. World leaders agreed to hide the truth until they understood the threat. They formed an emergency contact protocol and prepared for the unknown. Dr. Foster worked day and night, analyzing the approaching ships. Their propulsion system uses some kind of quantum folding. She explained to General Wilson. "They're moving faster than should be possible." "Can we fight them?" the general asked. Alex hesitated. "I don't know. Their technology is beyond anything we have." 7 days after the first detection, the Imperial ships entered Earth orbit. They were massive, each larger than an aircraft carrier, with sleek hulls that seemed to bend light around them. The ships positioned themselves above major cities while maintaining communication silence. Then, a single message arrived on all military channels worldwide. "People of Earth, the Galactic Empire welcomes you. Ambassador Corin requests a meeting with your planetary leadership to discuss your integration. This is a generous offer. Many worlds receive no such courtesy." World leaders hastily gathered in secret. Some wanted to fight immediately. Others suggested surrender. Most simply didn't know what to do. "We need time," Alex argued in the Emergency Council. "We need to learn about them before making decisions." The council agreed and sent a careful response, accepting the meeting but requesting 3 days to gather Earth's representatives. The Empire granted them 2. When Ambassador Corin's shuttle descended to the Geneva meeting facility, humans got their first look at an Imperial citizen. Corin stood 7 feet tall with bluish skin and 4 arms. His eyes, 3 of them, studied the human delegation with obvious disdain. "The Empire has watched your development," Corin announced without greeting. "You have reached a suitable technological level for integration. Your quantum research is of particular interest." General Wilson stepped forward. "What exactly does integration mean, Ambassador?" Corin's mouth formed what might have been a smile. "It means survival, General. The Empire does not tolerate unaligned worlds within its expansion zone." As the first meeting ended, Dr. Foster whispered to General Wilson, "They want something specific from us. The question is, what?" The Imperial ships continued their silent orbit, weapons dormant but ready, while humanity faced its greatest challenge. The Galactic Empire had arrived, and Earth had very little time to decide its fate. The Planetary Defense Council formed within hours of Ambassador Corin's first meeting. Representatives from 12 nations, gathered in a reinforced bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, their faces grim as they reviewed the situation. "What do they really want?" asked President Hayes of the United States, her voice tight with concern. Dr. Foster stood before the digital screens displaying orbital tracks of the Imperial vessels. Based on their technology and Ambassador Corin's statements, they want our quantum research. "Is it that valuable?" asked the Russian delegate. "It must be," replied Dr. Foster. "Our approach to quantum physics took a different path than theirs. We might have something they don't." Colonel James Reed, a military strategist with keen eyes and a tactical mind, stepped forward. "We need more information before making decisions. Ambassador Corin hasn't shown his full hand yet." The second meeting with Corin took place the following day. This time, the alien brought a holographic display that filled the room with stars and highlighted planets throughout the galaxy. "The Empire spans 3,000 worlds," Corin announced proudly. "Earth will be the 3,001st. Your integration will proceed as follows." The terms were brutal. Earth would surrender all military control. Humans would maintain local government, but under Imperial oversight. All technology and research would become Imperial property. Earth's resources would be harvested at Imperial discretion. "In exchange," Corin concluded, "you receive Imperial protection and the privilege of serving a greater civilization." "And if we refuse?" asked President Hayes. The alien's three eyes blinked in sequence. "Refusal is not recommended. Previous refusals have led to depopulation events." After Corin departed, the council erupted in argument. Some nations wanted immediate surrender to save lives. Others demanded resistance at any cost. "We need time," Colonel Reed insisted. "Give me and Dr. Foster 24 hours to analyze their technology. There might be a weakness." Through the night, they worked. Dr. Foster's team used Earth's most powerful computers to analyze scans of the Imperial ships. Colonel Reed studied historical patterns of Imperial conquest from the data Corin had proudly displayed. "Look at this," Reed said as dawn broke. He pointed to a map of conquered worlds. "They follow the same pattern every time. First diplomatic contact, then resource assessment, then conquest if needed. And every world surrenders," asked Dr. Foster. "Almost every world. But look, these three systems here, they are marked differently. Unsuitable for integration." Dr. Foster leaned closer. "What does that mean?" "I think," Reed said slowly, "it means they fought back successfully." Meanwhile, their technical team made a breakthrough. Lysa Park, a quantum physicist, rushed into the main lab, eyes wide with excitement. Their entire technology, weapons, shields, communications, it all depends on a specific quantum entanglement pattern, she explained. And it's vulnerable to disruption. Dr. Foster stared at the equations. "Are you saying we could shut down their systems?" "Theoretically," Lisa nodded. "Our quantum research took a different direction than theirs. We might be able to create a countermeasure they've never encountered." When the council reconvened, Dr. Foster presented their findings with cautious optimism. "We believe we can develop a quantum disruption field that would disable their technology. But we need more time." "How much time?" asked President Hayes. 2 weeks minimum," replied Dr. Foster. "Maybe more." The Indian representative spoke up. "Ambassador Corin expects our answer tomorrow. He will not grant 2 weeks." Colonel Reed smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "Then we need to convince the ambassador that we're considering surrender while actually preparing our defense." "A dangerous game," the Chinese delegate observed. "Yes," agreed Reed. "But it's our only chance. We appear weak and compliant while secretly developing the one thing that might save humanity." The council voted unanimously. Earth would play for time, appearing to negotiate in good faith, while working frantically to develop a technology that might be their only hope against an empire that had conquered thousands of worlds. Dr. Foster hadn't slept in 36 hours. The equations on her tablet blurred as she tried to focus. Around her, The hidden facility beneath the Rocky Mountains buzzed with activity as scientists from around the world worked frantically on Project Disruption. "You should rest," said Colonel Reed, placing a cup of coffee beside her. "Can't," she mumbled. "We're close to something. I can feel it." Reed studied the complex diagrams on the wall screens. "Explain it to me again. What makes our quantum research different from theirs?" Dr. Foster sat up straighter, grateful for the chance to organize her thoughts. The Empire built their technology on quantum entanglement, linking particles across space, but they focused on stability and distance. She pointed to the scans of Imperial tech. Their entire communication network, weapons systems, even their ship drives, all based on maintaining perfect entanglement states. And we took a different path. Yes, Earth scientists focused on quantum disruption and reorganization, essentially breaking and rebuilding entanglement. She smiled slightly. We were trying to develop better computers, not conquer the galaxy. Above them, Ambassador Corrin was growing impatient. In the third meeting with the Planetary Defense Council, his manner had become more threatening. "The Empire's generosity has limits," he declared. "You have 10 more Earth days to accept our integration terms. After that, we will proceed without your cooperation." President Hayes maintained a carefully practiced expression of concern and deference. "We need time to prepare our people, Ambassador. Such a massive change requires careful planning." 10 days, Corrin repeated. Admiral Vex grows impatient. When the Imperial delegation left, the Council received an update from Dr. Foster via secure link. "We've made progress," she reported. "We've confirmed their vulnerability to our disruption theory. Their systems had no defense against quantum state collapse." "Can you build a working device?" asked President Hayes. "We think so, but we need every available quantum lab on the planet working together." The Russian representative nodded. "You shall have them. We've evacuated our quantum research facility in Siberia. It's now at your disposal. The same for our facilities in Shanghai and Bangalore," added the Chinese and Indian representatives. Colonel Reed outlined the strategic plan. "We'll continue appearing cooperative with the Empire. Meanwhile, every major laboratory shifts to disruption technology development. We'll need global industrial support too. Manufacturing facilities ready to mass-produce components once the design is finalized." The Brazilian representative looked concerned. "Won't the Imperial observers notice this activity?" "That's the clever part," Reed replied. "They're expecting us to mobilize industry to serve the Empire. They'll interpret our actions as preparation for integration." For the next week, Earth became a planet of secrets. Military units moved quietly into strategic positions. Scientists worked around the clock. Industries retooled for parts they didn't fully understand but built to exact specifications. In her rare breaks, Dr. Foster watched news broadcasts. The public remained unaware of the Imperial ships, thanks to technology that made them invisible to conventional detection. Official stories about unusual satellite testing explained the occasional strange sightings. 6 days into the development, Lisa Park burst into the main laboratory. "We did it," she exclaimed, holding up a small device humming with blue energy. "The prototype works. We collapsed the quantum state of the test material completely." Dr. Foster stared at the device, barely able to believe it. This could disable their ships. Not just their ships, everything. Their weapons, communications, shields. All of it, if we can scale it up. Colonel Reed, who had been observing the test, immediately contacted the Council. "We have proof of concept. Now we need to build it big enough to cover the planet." When Ambassador Corrin called for the fourth meeting, President Hayes allowed herself to show a hint of confidence. The Council had prepared carefully, ready to buy the final days they needed. "We have nearly completed our preparations for integration," she told Corrin smoothly. "But we have some technical questions about resource allocation." As expected, the ambassador seemed pleased by Earth's apparent surrender. His 3 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he began explaining how Earth's minerals would be extracted for Imperial use. Behind her calm expression, President Hayes felt the weight of humanity's future. In 3 more days, they would know if their hidden advantage was enough to save their world. The world transformed in secret. Across 6 continents, manufacturing plants operated around the clock, producing components for a technology most workers didn't understand. Government officials told factory managers these parts were for planetary defense satellites, a rare truth wrapped in necessary secrecy. Colonel Reed coordinated the global effort from a command center deep beneath the Pentagon. Digital screens showed production metrics from factories in Japan, Germany, Brazil, South Africa, and dozens of other nations. For once, the entire world worked as one. "Status report," he demanded, his voice rough from too much coffee and too little sleep. "Component production is at 87% of required levels," reported Major Williams. "Assembly of the primary disruption nodes begins tomorrow at sites in Nevada, the Gobi Desert, and the Australian outback." "What about power requirements?" "Every major power grid is being reinforced. Nuclear plants are operating at maximum capacity. We've even brought old coal plants back online." Reed nodded, "And the Imperial observers still think we're preparing to serve them." Major Williams smiled thinly. "Our industrial mobilization looks exactly like a planet getting ready to become a resource colony." Above Earth, Ambassador Corrin reported to Admiral Vex via secure quantum link. "The humans are cooperating fully," Corrin said. "Their industries work day and night to prepare for our arrival. They ask only small concessions regarding their governance structure." Admiral Vex's scaled face showed satisfaction. "Excellent. Their quantum research facilities, all continuing operation. They believe we've granted them permission to maintain their work under future Imperial oversight." "Perfect. We'll extract their research innovations once integration is complete. Their approach to quantum mechanics is unexpectedly useful." Unaware their communications were being monitored by Dr. Foster's team, the Imperial leaders continued planning Earth's future as a colony world. In the underground facility, Dr. Foster reviewed the intercepted transmission with growing hope. "They have no idea what we're building," she told Lisa Park. "They think our quantum work is just theoretical research they can steal later." Lisa nodded, her fingers flying over a keyboard as she refined the disruption field calculations. "How's the field generator design?" Dr. Foster asked. "Final testing is complete. The distributed node network will create overlapping fields covering the entire planet and near orbit." Lisa pulled up a global map showing hundreds of red dots. "Each node creates a 50-mile radius disruption field. With this many generators, we'll have triple redundancy worldwide." Dr. Foster studied the technical readouts. "Power consumption. Enormous. We'll drain most of Earth's electrical capacity for about 30 minutes. After that, backup systems engage while primary grids recover." The operation required precise coordination. Each disruption node needed exact positioning and synchronization with the global network. Teams of engineers, many working without knowing the full purpose, installed equipment at sites worldwide. Military units quietly deployed around each installation, their movements disguised as routine exercises or disaster response training. If the Empire realized what was happening, these forces would be hopelessly outmatched, but they stood ready to fight. 9 days into the 10-day ultimatum, Colonel Reed met with the Planetary Defense Council for a final briefing. "All systems will be operational within 18 hours, he reported. "The disruption network is designed to activate simultaneously worldwide. Once triggered, all Imperial quantum technology within range should immediately fail." "And then?" asked President Hayes. "Then we deliver our message," Reed replied. "One morning, making our position absolutely clear." Ambassador Corrin, growing confident in Earth's submission, requested a final meeting with the Council to formalize Earth's integration into the Empire. The meeting was scheduled for exactly when the disruption network would be ready. That night, Imperial ships shifted position. The massive battlecruiser carrying Admiral Vex himself moved into Earth orbit, joining 30 other warships now visible in the night sky. The Empire, believing victory assured, no longer bothered hiding their presence. Dr. Foster watched the ships through a powerful telescope at her facility. Their positioning for planetary occupation, she observed quietly. Standard Imperial procedure according to their own records. Lisa Park joined her at the viewport. Will it work? Our technology against theirs. Dr. Foster looked at the armada above their world. Hundreds of vessels carrying thousands of Imperial troops and enough firepower to devastate Earth's surface. It has to, she said simply, because tomorrow we either save our world or lose everything. The council chamber gleamed with polished wood and brass as humanity's representatives gathered for what might be their final meeting. Through tall windows, Imperial ships hung in the sky like metal thunderclouds, visible now to everyone on Earth. Panic had begun spreading among the population as the massive vessels appeared overnight, too large and numerous to hide or explain away. Ambassador Corrin entered with 4 Imperial guards, their armor gleaming with strange symbols. He seemed particularly pleased today, his 3 eyes blinking in that peculiar sequence the humans had learned indicated satisfaction. The integration fleet has arrived, he announced without preamble. Admiral Vex himself honors your world with his presence. He rarely oversees colony establishment personally. President Hayes nodded formally. We are honored. Colonel Reed stood at the back of the chamber, one hand resting casually in his pocket where a small communication device waited. One press would activate the global disruption network. His face revealed nothing as Dr. Foster slipped quietly into the room and gave him an almost imperceptible nod. The system was ready. Before formalizing our integration, President Hayes said carefully, we have prepared a response document that requires your attention. Corrin's middle eye narrowed. Response. The terms are not negotiable. It's not a negotiation, Hayes replied. It's a warning. The ambassador's skin darkened slightly, the imperial equivalent of a frown. A warning? You presume to warn the Galactic Empire. Yes. Hayes nodded to Dr. Foster, who stepped forward with a tablet. Dr. Foster will explain. Foster placed the tablet on the table and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing technical specifications for the quantum disruption network. This is a detailed technical explanation of Earth's quantum disruption technology, she said calmly. It specifically targets the quantum entanglement patterns your entire empire relies upon for communication, weapons, and propulsion. Corrin stared at the display, his eyes widening as he processed the information. Then he laughed, a harsh, clicking sound. Primitive deception, he said dismissively. No planetary civilization has ever developed technology capable of disrupting imperial quantum systems. Our methods are perfect. Perfect, but predictable, Dr. Foster replied. Your empire standardized quantum entanglement, while Earth explored quantum disruption. Different evolutionary paths leading to a critical vulnerability in your systems. Corrin's guards shifted uncomfortably as the ambassador studied the schematics more carefully. For the first time, uncertainty showed in his posture. Even if this were possible, he said finally, you could not deploy such technology globally without our knowledge. President Hayes smiled thinly. We already have. Colonel Reed stepped forward. While you watched us mobilize our industries, believing we were preparing to serve you, we were building this instead. He held up the communication device. One press activates 300 disruption nodes worldwide. Corrin's confidence wavered visibly. Admiral Vex commands 300 warships in orbit. Your disruption theory is untested. Surrender remains your only logical choice. Perhaps a demonstration would help clarify our position, Dr. Foster suggested. President Hayes nodded. Colonel. Reed pressed the device, activating a single disruption node positioned beneath the council building. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The communication devices on Corrin's armor flickered and died. The guards' weapons emitted sparks and went silent. The holographic communicator on Corin's wrist dissolved into static. The ambassador stared in shocked silence at his dead technology. That was one node, at minimal power, affecting only this building, Dr. Foster explained. The full network will cover Earth and near orbit with a field 100 times stronger. Colonel Reed stepped closer to Corin. This is humanity's one and only warning. Leave our solar system immediately. We have no desire for conflict with the Empire, but we will not be conquered. Corin's 3 eyes blinked rapidly as the local disruption field faded and his communications resumed. Urgent messages from the fleet appeared on his wrist display, demanding situation reports. Admiral Vex will not retreat, Corin said, his voice less certain now. The Empire does not surrender. President Hayes stood. Then the Empire will face something it has never encountered before. This meeting is concluded, Ambassador. You have 1 hour to depart Earth orbit before we activate the full disruption network. As Corin hurried from the chamber with his guards, Earth's leaders looked at each other with the weight of what they had just done. Humanity had given its warning. Now they would see if the Empire would heed it. Admiral Vex paced the command deck of his flagship, scales bristling with rage. The holographic display showed Ambassador Corin's report from the planet's surface, including a recording of the human demonstration. Impossible. Vex slammed his fist on the control panel. No primitive world has ever developed counter-quantum technology. This must be a trick. His second-in-command, Officer Mira, studied the technical data transmitted by Corin. The theory appears sound, Admiral. If their disruption field works as demonstrated, our fleet could be vulnerable. I have conquered 87 worlds personally, Vex hissed. I will not retreat from primitives who have barely left their own atmosphere. On Earth, the Planetary Defense Council watched the Imperial fleet through satellite feeds. The massive ships remained in position, weapons systems glowing as they charge. They're not leaving, Colonel Reed observed grimly. They're preparing to attack. Dr. Foster monitored the disruption network status. All nodes show green. The system is ready for full activation. President Hayes looked around the table at humanity's representatives. The choice is made for us then. Colonel, prepare for full activation, and may whatever gods exist help us all. In orbit, Admiral Vex issued his commands. Target their largest population centers. Show these humans the consequence of defiance. Fire on my mark in 3, 2. Colonel Reed pressed the activation control. Across the planet and extending into near orbit, 300 quantum disruption nodes activated simultaneously. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Imperial fleet. On the flagship's bridge, chaos erupted. Control panels sparked and went dark. Gravity generators failed, sending crew members floating from their stations. Emergency lights flickered and died. Through the viewport, Vex watched in horror as the same scene repeated across his entire fleet. Restore power. He roared, floating helplessly in the zero-gravity environment. Weapons control. Communications. Officer Mira clung to a railing. All systems are non-responsive. Admiral, Quantum Core is in collapse. We can't even communicate with the rest of the fleet. Throughout the Imperial Armada, the same crisis unfolded. Warships designed to level planets drifted powerless in orbit. Weapons capable of vaporizing cities went silent. Life support systems switched to emergency backups, the only technology not dependent on quantum entanglement. On Earth, Dr. Foster monitored the results. Complete success. Their entire fleet is disabled. Any risk to our own systems? President Hayes asked. None. Our technology developed along different principles. We're immune to the disruption effect. Colonel Reed pointed to the satellite feed. Look, some Imperial ships are managing to restart minimal systems. They're using backup conventional drives, much slower but not quantum-based. The Council watched as the Imperial fleet began a disorganized retreat. Ships drifted away from Earth on minimal power, some colliding with each other in their haste to escape the disruption field. They're running, Someone whispered in disbelief. President Hayes turned to Colonel Reed. Let's make our position absolutely clear. Prepare our message. Within an hour, Earth's military satellites had been repositioned. Small, nimble Earth vessels, hastily fitted with communication equipment, approached the retreating Imperial fleet. From these ships, a message broadcast on all frequencies, translated into the Imperial language. To Admiral Vex and the Galactic Empire, Earth will not be conquered. We have disabled your fleet with a small demonstration of our defensive capabilities. We have no interest in further conflict, but we will defend ourselves with increasing force if necessary. The disruption field now surrounds our entire solar system. Do not return. Aboard his crippled flagship, Admiral Vex watched the small Earth vessels approach without fear. His mighty armada, the pride of the Imperial fleet, limped away from the blue planet with emergency systems barely functioning. This is not finished, he snarled to Officer Mira. Once we are beyond their disruption field, we will regroup. The Empire has faced setbacks before. Mira looked doubtful. Admiral, with respect. No world has ever repelled an Imperial fleet. The High Command will not view this failure kindly. Vex knew she was right. The Empire did not tolerate failure, especially from its highest officers. As his flagship slowly retreated from Earth, he faced the most humiliating moment of his long career, and the near certainty of execution upon his return. Behind the fleeing Imperial ships, Earth continued its peaceful orbit around the Sun, now protected by an invisible shield of humanity's own making. 6 months after the Imperial retreat, Dr. Foster stood at the window of the new Planetary Defense Headquarters, watching satellites assemble in orbit. Earth had changed profoundly since the encounter. Nations that once threatened each other with war now worked together, united by the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe. The quantum shield network is fully operational, Colonel Reed said, joining her at the window. 3 layers of disruption fields extending past Jupiter's orbit. Nothing using Imperial technology can approach without losing power. And the monitoring stations? Asked Dr. Foster. Complete on Mars and Europa. We'll have early warning of any approach. The Planetary Defense Council had become a permanent body, overseeing humanity's new path forward. Today, they would receive confirmation of something long suspected. President Hayes entered the conference room, followed by the other council members. The Deep Space Probe reports are confirmed, she announced. The Imperial High Command executed Admiral Vex for his failure. His replacement, Admiral Torek, has established a quarantine zone around our solar system. So they're not coming back? Asked the Brazilian representative. Colonel Reed displayed the translated Imperial documents their long-range communications had intercepted. They've classified Earth as hostile, technologically incompatible, avoid contact. It's the first time any world has received this designation without being destroyed. Dr. Foster studied the documents. They still don't understand what happened, do they? They think our quantum disruption technology is some kind of natural phenomenon unique to our solar system. Let them think that, President Hayes said. The less they understand, the safer we remain. In the 6 months since the confrontation, humanity had made remarkable progress. The quantum disruption technology had led to breakthroughs in energy production, computing, and space travel. The first human colony on Mars was already under construction, protected by its own disruption field. The new deep space vessels are ready for their first test flight, Colonel Reed reported. Using our quantum technology, they can reach Alpha Centauri in weeks instead of decades. And their defensive capabilities? Asked the Russian representative. Each ship carries a disruption field generator. If they encounter Imperial forces, they can protect themselves. Later that day, Dr. Foster visited the newly established Galactic Studies Academy. Young students from around the world trained here to become Earth's first generation of space explorers and diplomats. In the main hall, a striking memorial displayed the simple message Earth had sent to the Empire. Leave now. This was merely a demonstration. It had become known throughout Earth simply as the warning. humanity's first and only communication with the Galactic Empire. Dr. Foster addressed the student assembly, her voice carrying throughout the hall. We now know that the galaxy contains thousands of civilizations. Some, like the Empire, seek to conquer. Others may become our allies in time. Our task is to explore carefully, defend ourselves when necessary, and find our place among the stars. A student raised her hand. Dr. Foster, will we ever contact the Empire again? Perhaps someday, Foster replied. But on our terms, not theirs. Across the galaxy, stories spread among subjugated worlds. Whispers of the small blue planet that had repelled the mighty Empire without firing a shot. Some dismissed these tales as myths. Others gained hope from them, beginning their own secret research into quantum disruption technology. In the Imperial capital, the High Command established new protocols for planetary assessment. Never again would they approach a world without first scanning for quantum disruption capabilities. Earth became a forbidden topic, mentioned only as a warning to ambitious commanders. Admiral Torak, studying the reports of Earth's defense, made a personal note in the Imperial archives. Mark this world carefully. They did not fight as others fought. They did not negotiate as others negotiated. They simply showed us what they could do and delivered one warning. A species that defeats you without battle is more dangerous than any warrior race. As Earth's first interstellar vessels prepared to venture beyond the solar system, humanity carried this new reputation forward. The species that gave the warning, the only civilization to ever turn back the Empire with a single demonstration of power and a simple message of determination. Earth had found its place in the galaxy, not as a conquered world, but as a protected haven of innovation and independence among the stars.